Hey everyone, we're going to talk about some racial issues that exist in the 20s, and not all of it's going to be great. Groups like the KKK are going to be coming back, and they're going to represent this backlash against modern values that are occurring during the 20s. The new technology that's being created, like the Ford Model T automobile, the new ways women are acting and dressing, being flappers, new types of dancing they're having, like the Charleston, modern values like science that are starting to be adopted. So some Americans are going to reject those principles and clash with these new modern values, hoping for more traditional values to win the day. And they go towards what's familiar. And unfortunately, racism, nativism towards immigrants, these things are the normal for the 1800s. So a lot of Americans are going to look backwards during this time of change and uncertainty in their lives. So the KKK is going to be an oppressive group. The Ku Klux Klan is going to be an oppressive group that is going to try to intimidate and oppress African Americans, homosexuals, Jews, basically believing that whites are superior. They are white supremacists. So they are going to try to do whatever they can, mostly to stop Black Americans from exercising their right to vote that they get with the 15th Amendment, to stop Black Americans from being involved in politics, and they'll do that through intimidating them, lynching, hanging them from trees, and killing them. It's a terrible thing, and the tactics that they use pretty much work. They don't want Black Americans around them believing that they're inferior, and they will do whatever they can to keep them down. And that would happen mostly in the southern areas of America, as slavery existed mostly in the South in the 1800s. So what a lot of Black Americans are going to start to do is start moving, as you see here, northward. They're going to move to places like Chicago, to Detroit, Cleveland, Baltimore, Philadelphia, these northern cities, to escape the KKK, to escape the racist attitudes that have historically been a part of the South. So we call this migration of Black Americans moving from the South to the North the Great Migration. What is going to push them out of the South is going to be racism, the KKK, like we said, but there's also going to be what we call pull factors. What is going to pull them out of the South and say, hey, let's go north instead of saying go west, go east, so on, so on. So there are new jobs that are available up in the north, in this area that we're going to end up calling the Rust Belt. Up here in the Rust Belt in the north, there's going to be factory jobs for all these new inventions that are going on, things like radios, automobiles, the Model Ts that we were talking about earlier. These places need workers, and Black Americans will find lots of success taking on these jobs. So pushing them, racism, the KKK, polling Black Americans up north, jobs, manufacturing jobs from all those new technologies. And amongst what they're going to find up north is a big cultural event that we call the Harlem Renaissance, which is going to be this rejuvenation, this rebirth of Black American culture in places like New York City and Harlem, an area of New York, where new types of music like jazz will come out, new types of writing, literature, poetry, dancing, arts are going to come out that are really expressed by Black Americans. This age is also going to be called the Jazz Age, as we see, as jazz music is the biggest thing that really comes out of it. A lot of this jazz music is going to come out of this place that we call Tin Pan Alley, a little area of New York City, which is going to create a lot of this jazz music and a lot of other popular music that is coming out during the 20s, where flappers can dance to it, and speakeasies can have this music going on while people are illegally drinking during this era of Prohibition. But shifting gears one more time back to immigration, There will be other leaders saying that America has racist attitudes that are buried on the surface and deep underneath. So even if black Americans take that great migration from the south to the north, they're not necessarily going to escape racism. That up north they would still find it. So leaders like Marcus Garvey, as you see right here, are going to say that blacks need to have their own self-determination. They need to determine who they want to be, what kind of life they want, and they can't do that with racism in their backyard. So he's going to start a movement that we call the Black to Africa movement, that says black Americans, we need to go to Africa, they might say, to escape this racism in our backyard, to create a separate black society that can be successful, that can prosper, that can become something great away from racism. And other leaders later, 40 years later or so, in the 1960s, like Malcolm X, you may have heard of, are going to take inspiration from Garvey and take this idea of black self-determination, black nationalism, and run with it. And we'll get to those in later videos. But that's pretty much an overview of what's going on in terms of race in the 1920s. I hope you learned something. Thank you.